Welcome back to another D.K.K.S. Productions movie breakdown. I am Charlie Cannon.
My name's Ian F. Scott.
Why don't you tell them what we're breaking down for him today?
Happy to, Kaiser. Today we are going to be breaking down everybody's favorite 1985 movie, The Goonies.
Ooh, I love that movie. I don't know about you.
I can't stand it, actually.
Oh!
It sucks. I hate it.
You've never seen it, have you? Neither have I, so this should be interesting. The Goonies was one of my favorite movies growing up. I know it was...
It was probably one of mine, too,
Yeah, and, it's one of those movies that, unlike The Princess Bride and Baby Driver, I have not watched that consistently throughout the years. So recently when we rewatched it, I was picking up on some stuff that I haven't really noticed in the past. But I still had that same sort of nostalgic enjoyment in the experience.
That's probably one of my favorite things about the movie. Is just, you feel like that wonderment that you feel as a kid while watching it.
Yeah.
It's great.
Definitely. And real quick before we hop into the breakdown, we want to give a special shout out to Linda Tracy in Greenville, South Carolina, I believe is where she is stationed. But she made us these brand new...
Yeah, check out these juicy tees.
Check that out.
Turn around.
Check out the back, yeah.
Oh, yeah. That logo. Thank you, Linda, for the dope logo, for the dope shirts. We love them. They fit great. And
seriously.
I think they're exactly what we wanted.
Oh, definitely. And so we're going to put in the description ways that if you want to have your own merch created for a good price and great value, how you can get in contact with her. She really does deliver. I think we're both pretty excited about how these turned out.
Absolutely recommended. Juicy tees, Linda Tracy.
Very juicy. And
very tea.
All right, so should we hop into it?
Yeah, let's do it. Okay, so without any further ado, we are going to grab our cigars. We're going to grab a drink. And we are going to buckle the F up, Buttercup.
So what are we drinking today?
Today we are going to be drinking a Caribbean rum called Calico Jack. And actually, there are a couple funny things about this bottle. It stood out to me mostly because when I was a younger man, and by younger man I mean last year, I played Calico Jack in a show called Pirate's Voyage in Pigeon Forge, Tennessee. Shout out Pirate fam. What up? So I hate rum, and this was about a $10 bottle, so I'm really looking forward to trying this.
It was $10?
It was. So it's quality. And also, I realized after I bought it that it is a pirate rum, which just so happens to fit the theme of our movie perfectly, since these kids are on a treasure hunt for a pirate treasure. So, Calico Jack, let's get that crisp break. Ooh, that was nice.
Satisfying.
That's about going to be the only good thing that comes out of this bottle, I'm sure.
And out of this video.
That looks about good, roll.
Yeah. Oh, I am not looking forward to this one, man. Oh,
hey,
gosh.
like the peanut butter whiskey, it may surprise
We got to give it, exactly. So we're going to take a little sniff.
Yep, take a little sniff it.
Yep.
Yep, it tastes like
That's
it.
rum.
Smells like shit.
All right.
To you, Calico Jack.
Slash it. You know what?
Wasn't as bad as I was expecting.
Wasn't as bad.
It hits you.
The bad taste comes when you pay attention to it.
Yes.
It's there. You just got to focus a little bit. You can find that awfulness, but...
Yeah, I think for sure rum was meant to be put into Coke. Or
damn, we should have got some Coke to drink with this. We're going to be sipping on straight rum this entire video. So, it's going to be ugly. What are we puffing on?
We're puffing on some Tatiana Vanillas. They're kind of short boys, but that's okay. I enjoy vanilla tipped cigars myself, so I'm really looking forward to trying this out. And it should go pretty well with the rum since it's vanilla.
We've been chewing on these for the past 30 minutes while we're waiting on the phones to charge to film this, and I can say they're pretty dang tasty. So.
I'm pretty sure I have already licked off all the vanilla coating because I like vanilla. And
he's fat.
I'm also dickless. Don't forget that part. That's very important.
That's true. He is a dickless fat ass, but more on that in videos to come.
Let's jump in to our favorite 1985 movie, The Goonies.
let's talk editing real quick. So real quick, before I talk about the editor himself, I want to talk about the editing specifically in this movie because, holy crap, there are a ton of continuity errors in this movie. Like, it's really too much to name. We noticed them a lot throughout watching the film. It doesn't take away from anything, though. I will say that. Like, it's something that when you're watching, you'd be like, that wasn't right, that wasn't right. Why is this the same way? I think the first thing that's coming to mind is they let the air out of Josh Brolin's tire in that one scene, and then he comes out and he goes, "They popped my tires!" Like, that's just, how could you possibly? But this does not speak anything on the editor of the film. The editor of this film is Michael Kahn. You may have heard of this man. He works with Steven Spielberg a ton. Steven Spielberg produced this movie, so it makes sense that he's working on this. A few other films that this man has edited: Raiders of the Lost Ark, Saving Private Ryan, Schindler's List, Minority Report. I'm saying this guy is one of the greatest film editors of all time. Sure, the editing in this film is not as good as a lot of the other works that he's done, but like I said, it doesn't take away from the film, and it doesn't take away from the man himself. So cheers to Michael Kahn. What are your thoughts on the editing in this film?
I gotta say, I agree with you about the continuity errors. I agree with you that it doesn't take away from anything in the movie, a lot like The Princess Bride. And like I said earlier, it just makes me feel like a kid again because it kind of fills me with that same kind of wonderment and sense of adventure that I had as a kid. And I think that's just, kind of growing up with this movie, that's how you're supposed to feel.
Mm-hmm.
And, I've never noticed editing in particular in this movie, but I think, like you said in The Princess, or maybe Baby Driver, one of the two, that means that the editor did a good job.
Right.
So I think he did a great job.
Definitely.
I think he did a great job.
Definitely.
I think he did a great job.
Definitely.
Yeah, editing.
Very insightful. So yeah, I do want to say also at the same time, while I did notice all the continuity errors and everything like that, I mentioned I admire Michael Kahn as an editor, all those other works. I admire his work in this as well. I think that there are certain sequences in the film that really stand out, and I think that he just did a stupendous job overall. And I feel like the continuity errors are something that not most people would notice either. I just got an eye for that sort of thing. It's just this man right here. But
I think a couple of things that really stand out in the movie about the editing are I've always loved the sequence when they're on they're playing the bones to try to get that door to open to get down to the ship. I think that whole sequence is just really great. How it cuts between Andy playing the bones, the rest of the Goonies kind of flipping out, and then the Fratellis right on their tail being comically just big screw ups.
Yeah,
and I think that whole sequence is really well edited together.
Yeah, and as we mentioned in the last video, editing is not by any means easy. So it is easy for me to forgive certain mistakes when sequences like that exist in films.
For sure.
Beautiful. Cheers to you, Michael Kahn.
Michael Kahn.
Shall we have a talk about directing? I believe we should. The director of this film, Richard Donner. For some reason, whenever I think about the Goonies, over the last few years, even when we were watching it the other night, I mentioned how it was directed by Steven Spielberg. It's not. It's directed by Richard Donner. My bad. The directing in this film is fantastic. Just to give you a little background, whoops. A little background on Richard Donner. I think his other most notable films are Superman with Christopher Reeve, which we all love. Rest in peace to Christopher Reeve, of course. The best Superman of all time, no disrespect, Henry Cavill. And Lethal Weapon, starring everybody's favorite non-controversial actor, Mel Gibson. So, he doesn't have as broad a catalog as Steven Spielberg or even Michael Kahn, as we talked about with the editing. But he really did do a great job with this film. When you're working with a lot of young actors, it's not going to be super easy. First of all, you got to cast the right people, which I think that he absolutely I'm not sure how involved he was in the casting process, but it's never easy, and usually directors do have a pretty big hand in that. And he did a great job with that. And I know that Keaton's going to talk a little bit more about the cast and the acting of it later, but I thought he did a great job with that and keeping them under control. Like I said, can't be easy, but they deliver. I can't help but watch this film and be reminded of when I was a kid, hanging out with my friends. All the performances are super natural. He did a really good job of getting what he wanted to out of the actors, and it just brought out this childhood innocence sort of nostalgic feeling in me. So I can really respect that. As far as the film itself, it exudes this just magical feeling that was something that I felt as a kid and something that I still feel to this day. And even, I think before we watched it I think we watched it about a week and a half ago, maybe at this point. But before that, it had been a couple years since I'd seen the movie. But whenever I would think about it in that time frame, it's still, I would get this feeling. And, sort of how I talked about the Princess Bride, how it just makes you feel good. This movie makes me wonder almost. It makes me kind of just curious about what's out there and everything that the world has to offer, because they go on this treasure hunt, everybody's saying this stuff. That's just the feeling you get from the film itself, and that comes from a combination of things. But at the helm of it all, of course, is Richard Donner. So I thought he did a fantastic job with this film.
I think Richard Donner really, really hit the nail on the head with not only casting, but also kind of some ploys that he would utilize during filming. Most notably, when at the end, when they see the pirate ship for the first time, they turn around, they're all like, wow. That was the actor's first time seeing the ship, like, ever. He had purposefully kept them away from that piece of the set until he could get them all turning around, looking at the ship for the first time so they could see the scale of it, and their reactions were real.
Holy Mary, Mother of God.
Yeah, they were real. They were, actually seeing it for the first time, and I think that was definitely a good call because... otherwise, I don't think the reactions would have been as authentic as they were.
And you know what else I think probably played a big part into him getting what he wanted to out of these child actors is the fact that he was working with somebody on this film that is used to working with child actors, Mr. Steven Spielberg.
I know he had a really good relationship with the kids as well.
Spielberg or Donner?
Both.
Right.
But namely Spielberg, and there's actually a story that as soon as they were done filming, Richard Donner was going to go on a long vacation, a well-deserved vacation in Hawaii to his house because he just spent the better part of a year working on this movie, working with kids who were young and rambunctious and, were excited to be on a film set, kind of like I am whenever I'm on a film set. Mm-hmm. And Steven Spielberg was like, you want to get away from the kids for a while? That's okay. I'm going to fly them all out to your house. And when you arrive, we're all going to be chilling in your house, and you're actually not going to get a vacation away from us. So that's what they did. And,
wow.
Yeah,
Here's not to you, Spielberg.
Well done.
Yeah.
If I was Richard Donner, I'd be like...
I'd show up and be like, I'm going back to LA.
Oh my God. I'm so happy.
Thanks, Steven. Damn, I did not know that, but that is a wild story.
Good story.
Nonetheless, great job, Richard Donner, and... Just real quick. Here's to you, my friend.
Cheers. May I interest you in some Calico Jack Caribbean rum? No? Can't interest me in it either.
I'm not interested myself.
Richard Donner, you're the man. Alright, so cinematography, one of my favorite parts to talk about during these breakdowns. I have gotten to become very fond of cinematography, and the cinematographer for this movie, his name was Nick McLean, and he's also worked on movies such as Cobra, Spaceballs, and The Best Little Whorehouse in Texas, with my old boss from Pirates Voyage, where I played Calico Jack, Dolly Parton, so shout out Miss Dolly. But I have always loved the cinematography of this movie, mostly because they shot it in the Pacific Northwest, in Oregon, which is just a beautiful part of the country. And the coastline, I couldn't imagine them filming the movie at any other place other than the Pacific Northwest. I just think it was such a unique location choice. So shout out to the location scouts, to Richard Donner, to Steven Spielberg for locking down that specific part of the country. But some shots that really stick out to me in this movie are, without a doubt, one of the last shots of the movie. It is the last shot of the movie where Willie's ship is sailing out from behind a rock formation of some kind, and the sheriff just looks at it, sees it off in the distance, and he says, "Holy Mary, Mother of God!" And there's the music just crescendos, and boom, the ship is sailing off into the sunset, and it is. I'm getting chills. Like, my spine is tingling just thinking about how beautiful that ending is. I tear up every time, and it's just my favorite shot. I think maybe top 5 favorite shots of all time in any movie, because it's just so beautiful and means so much to me. So, what do you think about the cinematography? And what do you think about that shot in particular?
Well, I think it's fantastic, and I think that. We were talking about with the editing, really good editing is a film where you don't really notice the editing. And I feel like it partly stands true for cinematography as well. Of course, there are some films where you have some shots that just wow you. Like one of the ones that comes to mind off the top of my head, The Last Jedi, when Commander Purplehair goes into light speed through the...
Oh, yeah.
Boom. Those who have seen it know what I'm talking about. I know it's very vague. I haven't seen the movie in a long time. But I do want to talk about that shot that you were talking about at the end of the movie. That was one that I'm not sure if it was the first time I'd ever teared up at a movie, but I want to say it may have been. I find myself being more vulnerable when I am watching films. Like if something really sad happens in a movie that I'm really invested in, it can make me cry. This film makes me cry, or that shot in particular makes me at least tear up just out of the sheer beauty of it. It makes me want to be a pirate and like sail the 7 seas and like do all this crazy stuff. It's always just made me have this incredible roller coaster of emotion going on in my head, and it has a lot to do with the shot. It has a lot to do with the reactions, which you just mentioned were completely authentic. It has a lot to do with the score. Everything about that just comes together perfectly. But there's just something about seeing that ship come around the corner. It's just beautiful, man.
Yeah, and also kind of like going back to your talking about the score. The score of this movie is so good. I think a lot of what makes a movie so great and memorable, it has to do with the score as well. So,
right.
So this definitely had a good musical.
Yeah.
Element. The Goonies theme is like the dun 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 dun. So good.
Yeah. It's actually exactly that. It's a recording of him doing that.
Yes. 10 years before I was born, they somehow managed to...
They got inside his dad's nuts. But yeah, no, the score is just absolutely fantastic. And yeah, cinematography. Nick McLean, I think, did an excellent job. And at this point, they're just part of the video. They're with us. They're part of D.K.K.S production. Welcome.
Thanks, sound department.
We'll get you your t-shirt soon. Nick McLean, here's to you. Thank you for giving me one of my favorite all-time shots. Cheers.
Okay, let's chat about the acting performances in this movie. I'm going to start out with Sean Astin, because for a long time this was the only movie I'd ever seen Sean Astin in, and I think he did a really, really wonderful job with the character of Mikey. He's
sexy.
Yeah. One of the actors that I want to start out with is Sean Astin. I think he plays the character of Mikey really, really, really well. A kid who, is starting to, become like a teenager and kind of like starting to find out who he is and kind of grow up a little bit. And this is kind of like his last kind of like childhood hurrah with his friends. And who are all, about to do the same thing. And this is kind of like, they know, like we're growing up and this is like the last thing that we can do as kids. And one of the most like notable scenes that I can think about with Sean Astin is in The Wishing Well, when he's giving that monologue and he's like, next time you take a test, it's gonna be in some other school, and next time you see Sky, it's gonna be in some other town. But like, we gotta do our thing down here, because right now our parents have to do their thing up there. They don't have to worry about us right now. And I think that's a really powerful message. And kind of like looking back, kind of has like a lot more weight to it than I ever thought it did. But as I grew up, I kind of realized more and more what that writing was trying to tell me, or to tell, everybody. Josh Brolin in this movie. You said right before we watched it, or like as we were watching it, you were like, Josh Brolin has really improved in acting since then. And I remember saying, "Is like, I think he does a good job in this movie," and I do, but he definitely did improve a lot in since then. I think he plays the character of Bran really well. The frustrated older brother who just really is like, I'm so tired of my little brother fucking up my plans, which I think is just like the sentiment of any older sibling, especially at that point in their respective lives. I think the best moment of acting I see from both Josh Brolin and also Sean Astin, but mostly Josh Brolin, is when after Troy's dad, I'm not even sure what his position is, gives them the papers and like foreclosure papers, I'm assuming, and Mikey's just kind of like sulking outside, and they all go back inside, and Bran comes back out, and they have that moment of just little brother, big brother, like it's gonna be okay, and it's a really beautiful moment, and one of my favorite scenes in the movie, something I always look forward to when I watch it. So definitely shout out Josh Brolin. What do you think of acting performances as a whole in this movie?
I did say at the beginning of the film that Josh Brolin has improved, which he has. I mean, he has some lines in this film that he delivers in the beginning that, like, I think if he were to deliver them now, he would do them entirely different. And that's just, from growth as a person and as an actor, life experience, film experience. We all know how good of an actor Josh Brolin is now. I do want to talk about Josh Brolin in this film because I don't think he does a bad job by any means. In fact, his character is my favorite in the film. And that the moment you mentioned when Troy's dad gives them the papers and they meet and they like hug each other, I think is one of the sweetest things. I always wish that I had, no disrespect to Courtney and Audrey if y'all watch these even. I always wish that I had a brother. I thought it would be a lot of fun, and I think a lot of the reason I wanted one was from this film. I also want to talk about Sean Astin. He's a little kid, literally. When people mention Sean Astin, most people say, oh yeah, the guy from Lord of the Rings, or the guy from Rudy, or most recently he's Bob, I think is his name, in Stranger Things. I haven't watched Stranger Things, so
watch it.
I've tried. But whenever somebody mentions Sean Astin, I still think Goonies, just because I watched it so much growing up and it has such a special place in my heart. And he still looks the same now as he did in the Goonies, maybe a couple extra pounds, but no extra inches in height.
You're right, he's so short.
He does a great job. Like I said, this is a film made of entirely kid actors for the most part, and you do have some teenage actors in the film too. You got the two girls tagging along,
which are it's such a funny. They're banter.
It's a very funny dynamic. The guy that plays Mouth, I can't even think of it. Do you know his name? Corey Feldman. What else has he been in?
Fuck if I know.
Exactly. So the guy that plays Mouth, Corey Feldman, I thought he did a great job in this film.
Not only he's so funny,
he's a standout. I almost feel like he steals the entire movie.
Without a doubt.
At least his performance does. But I haven't seen him in anything else. Shout out Corey Feldman. I know there's a huge chance that you watch these on a regular basis, these breakdowns that we do.
Yeah,
so
he probably follows us. Probably.
Yeah, he's one of our 9 subscribers. So shout out to Corey for subscribing to us, and also shout out for a great performance in the film. You did a stunning job, better than most actors our age that I know. No disrespect to most of the actors I know, but God,
all disrespect. You all suck.
Yeah,
us included.
Especially only us.
Only us. Another person I want to talk about in this movie is the kid who plays Data. I'm not even going to try to pronounce his name because I'm just going to butcher it. But he literally did The Goonies and Temple of Doom.
Yeah.
And that is it. But he kills it in both those movies.
Yeah.
He's so funny in this movie, and one of my favorite lines in the movie actually comes from him. And it's when they're staking out the Fratelli's hideout, the restaurant. And the two guys walking the feds, I think they say they were. And Chunk is like, what if they were drug dealers? And Data just kind of pops him on the head and says, drug dealers wouldn't be caught dead in those polyester rags.
Yeah.
It's so funny. And he's a humorous comedic relief throughout the whole movie. His inventions, which 50% of the time they work when they absolutely have to, and when they don't have to, they fail hilariously. And I think that was just really good writing.
Yeah. He's a walking Deus Ex Machina. This guy if they're ever in a if they're ever in a sticky situation, he always has a gadget to get them out of it.
The bully blinders.
Yeah, and it's some of them are pretty outlandish, but I mean the movie itself is outlandish, so it works.
Yeah.
I also want to
slick shoes.
What's his the Fratellis?
Yeah, the Fratellis.
Fratellis. I want to give a shout out to all three of them. Like I thought,
so good.
They're some of the best movie villains of all time, especially the mom.
Also, shout out to like making that a female character,
Mm-hmm.
because that wasn't really being done. Like a main villain being a female.
Yeah, seriously, and she had the two guys, and
wrapped around her finger for sure.
Shout out to Sloth.
No, Sloth.
Yeah, I mean, great acting. Yeah. So shout out to all the actors. Cheers.
Cheers.
So let's talk about writing a little bit in this film.
Absolutely.
So the story for this film was written by a little unknown,
really
underground indie writer named Steven Spielberg. He's done a few other films here and there, but they're not really worth talking about. Notable. So look him up if you really want to hear about Steven.
Spiles, something like that.
Something Burge. Screenplay was written by
another very unknown writer, Chris Columbus.
Chris Columbus. He, I think he's most well known for discovering the United States of America. So shout out to Chris Columbus. Cheers.
You're a hell of a guy, Chris Columbus.
Yeah, and you've been alive for a long ass time. But no, yeah, his name actually is Chris Columbus. Y'all probably know him from Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets, which happen to be my two favorite Harry Potter films. He didn't write those though. We just looked at his writing catalog a second ago, and
the only thing that was really worth mentioning is the Goonies. Also, he did Gremlins and Gremlins 2.
And Christmas with the Cranks, which I think is an underrated Christmas movie, but I understand why most people absolutely hate it. But the writing in this film, overall, A+. It's a genius story, in my opinion, and I think that there's something about, I always think about when I'm listening to dialogue that a woman speaks that I know is written by a man. Sometimes it sounds very disingenuous, and I feel the same way when I'm watching little kids talk. A lot of the times it sounds disingenuous. It doesn't sound like the way little kids talk, and you can tell, oh, this was written by an adult very clearly. This sounds like how little kids talk. Like it feels like a group of actual friends doing things, and just the adventure and everything that they come across on the adventure, all the way to discovery, all the way to the end. It's a brilliant story.
Absolutely. I mean, like, who didn't want to go look for a pirate treasure as a kid? Who doesn't want to go look for a pirate treasure in their 20s?
I want to go right now. I'll probably want to do it until the day I die.
I mean, the adventure and the mysticism of it all, I mean, it's the perfect formula for a children's movie from the 80s that a lot of adults love because, you know, they watched and they grew up with it. I grew up with it. It's just the writing, the fact, this came out 35 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
There's a reason why we're talking about it 35 years.
Oh, that's weird to think about.
There's a reason why we're talking about it 35 years on, because it's so good. Because the writing was so, it connected with a lot of people, and that's good writing.
Yeah, it's just weird to think that 1985 was 35 years ago.
I still think the 1980s were
20 years ago. Yeah, no, it's crazy. But yeah, shout out to Chris Columbus. Shout out to Steven Spielberg. Fantastic writing. Cheers to you.
Cheers. I'm dripping all over my goddamn shorts, so it looks like I pissed myself.
I'm pissing myself, so it looks like I'm dripping all over my goddamn shorts.
That's right. And another thing I think we both wanted to chat about was the set design for this movie.
Absolutely.
And that is something I think we can talk about going forward if we feel the need to. But really, for this movie specifically, since most of everything was done very clearly on a set in a soundstage,
because they're underground for a good portion of this movie.
It's just mind-boggling that someone could come up with something that complex and that magnificent of a scale. Like the pirate ship, they built an actual pirate ship. I mean, that is a full-size actual ship that could sail.
Right. And I think that I don't know what lot they created this cave set that the pirate ship was in, but I would have loved to have been there and to seen that actually happening.
And to be a part of that as a child, man, like being a part of that now would be unreal. But like as a kid, when like that stuff is like so vivid in like your like your make believe world,
right? And you're still so innocent, and you know, just. But no, the set design in this film, stupendous.
Absolutely,
definitely, and I feel like it's almost something we should have talked about with The Princess Bride too. Now that I'm thinking about it, because there's some great sets on that. But for this, it really sticks out, and it's something that you're conscious of while watching it, which either can be a really good thing or a really bad thing. In this instance, it was a really good thing.
Yeah. Also, like those water slides that they slide down on the way to the ship.
I want to do that.
I mean, like, who doesn't love water slides? Come on.
Is there a I'm sure there's a Goonies ride somewhere, maybe Universal Studios.
If there's not, there should be. Universal, hit us up.
Yeah.
We got ideas.
Yeah, as long as you come with the.
Honestly, we'll work for free.
We'll pay you.
We'll pay you.
Please hit us up. We're desperate here.
Please.
Now we looked at the name of the set designer. We couldn't find one
Linda,
set.
like DeSena.
We found somebody named
Linda. Linda Tracy.
No, good on you, Linda.
Shout out Juicy Teas.
One more time.
Juicy
D.K.K.S.
Teas.
So we don't got anybody to cheers, but shout out to the set designer of the Goonies.
Everyone involved.
Everybody.
Thank you very much for joining D.K.K.S. Productions on our movie breakdown of The Goonies, everyone's favorite 1985 film.
Hopefully this one, we kind of tried to get through this one a little faster. We mentioned in the last video we're trying to trim down the time. I think we ended up trimming it down by 9 minutes maybe. This one, hopefully, maybe we can trim off a little bit more. Or, you know, if you're enjoying these long videos, then we'll keep making them long.
Also, something I've meant to bring up in every outro since we started this whole shindig is if you kind of like the idea of these videos and like kind of breakdowns of movies, you should check out a podcast called The Green Light, which you can find on Spotify podcasts or Apple podcasts, and that's run by a friend of ours from college, Lauren Hunkley, and her boyfriend and housemates in LA, and they pretty much just get, you know, pretty much really unknown playwrights, and they bring them in and interview them and talk about their plays, and they do that every week. So if you kind of like this idea, maybe you would check out that podcast, The Green Light. You can find it on pretty much every podcast platform now, I believe.
Good people.
So
good
shout
content.
out, yeah, Lauren Hunkley. And so I think the only thing that's left is to talk about. What are some of your favorite quotes from the, like one or two of your favorite quotes from the movie?
Okay, let me think real quick. So there's the obvious ones like, "Hey, you guys," with Sloth.
Absolutely.
Another one that comes to mind is not even like an extravagant quote by any means. It's when they're pulling all the beads and jewelry out of Mouth's mouth, and Mama Fratelli just goes, "Oh my God!" That, and then of course, "Holy Mary, Mother of God."
Absolutely, yeah, good.
What about you? I know the feds would never be caught dead in those.
Yeah, so that one, in addition to the one or two I'm about to spit off to you, but after the "Hey, you guys," people like look up and they see Chunk and they all collectively like, "Chunk!" And he says, "No, Captain Chunk." And Captain Chunk says, "Let's get the hell out of here."
Yeah.
I've always loved that one. And I think probably it's not really a quote, but it's like a piece of dialogue. And it's after Andy kisses Mikey when she thinks it's Bran. And they're having that whole conversation, Andy and Steph. And she's like, "There's something weird. Does Bran wear braces?" And it's just like cringy as hell.
You just made out with a little boy.
You creepo.
You're going to jail.
But as a kid, I had a huge crush on her.
Oh, me too. I still
do. Yeah.
Maybe we'll cut that part.
Hit me up,
I don't know,
baby.
Hey, I'm down with the older ladies, so I don't know.
She
what
looks
you
the
want.
exact same, honestly.
What?
Yeah, like she honestly looks like the exact same.
Hit me up,
please. The Goonies, Next week, we are going to be reviewing another really favorite
Wait.
movie of ours.
Wait. Should we rate it real quick? 1 out of 10. I think we forgot to do this with the Princess Bride.
No, we did it with the Princess Bride.
We did it with the Princess Bride.
Oh, yes.
Did we do 1 out of 10? Is that what we're doing?
Yeah, 1 out of 10.
The Goonies, I would put at.
Hold on,
Yeah, let me think. I got it.
Yeah, okay, I think I got it.
I'm gonna put the Goonies at an 8 out of 10.
I was going to say like an 8.3 myself.
Like we said, it's something that's incredibly near and dear to us. What did we put the Princess Bride at? I can't remember. It was 9 something.
It was very high. It was like 9.6 and 7.
Yeah, I feel like it's not quite in that realm with me as far, like I said, I go long times without watching it, but it will always be a movie that I hold very close to me.
Absolutely. And like we say with every movie, there's nothing that takes away, those 2 points or whatever that,
We're just
it's
reserving.
just, we're talking about our favorite movies that we love.
Yeah.
We love all of these movies. There's nothing wrong that
Right.
takes away those 2 points or whatever.
Yeah.
It's just, we have to be realistic and
Unbiased.
Yeah,
Yeah.
unbiased for sure. So that's where it stands with us.
Because if we were just, giving them our personal rankings, they'd all get 10s.
Without a doubt.
Yeah.
And like I said, I'm very liberal with my 9.9s and 9.9 and a halves because I know that's a real number.
Yeah. And I have a feeling the one we're doing next week, though, is going to get incredibly high, if not 10s.
Yes,
from us.
and I actually do not know what he's picked out for our movie next week. So why don't you just go ahead and drop that little baby on me right now?
Yep. So we have a lot of films that we're looking forward to doing. One of the films that I've been looking forward to doing since we came up with this idea, it's one that not only have we watched consistently for the last, how old are we?
Going on 25?
10 years, if not more. It's one that literally we reference every single day of our
I
lives.
already know what you're going to say.
We will be reviewing The Usual
Usual
Suspects
Suspects
next week, and I couldn't, or whenever we can get that done to you, because we watch the movies, we film them, it takes forever to edit them, so whenever we get it to you, we'd like to keep it pretty consistent, on a weekly
Actually,
basis.
fun fact, the editing isn't what takes so long. It's just the fact that YouTube fucking sucks and takes like literally 5 days
Yeah.
to upload one of these
Literally.
videos.
So
It
if y'all
stresses me out.
have any advice on how to get videos uploaded faster, please
Please tell us.
hit my gosh dang DMs.
Yes, follow us on Instagram, please, and then
Yeah.
hit us up in the DMs telling us how we can upload to
Right.
YouTube faster.
Or if you have any ideas about stuff that you might like to see us talk about in the videos that you'd enjoy to hear, we're open to a lot of ideas. We're just getting started with this whole thing. We're having a good time throughout it, and I think next time that we do this for The Usual Suspects, we're gonna have a blast.
We have a lot to say.
Yeah.
Because that is legit one of our favorite movies.
I'm having a hard time not to start talking about
Yeah,
it
me
right
too.
now.
Honestly,
So
I
guess
I can rattle off like 5,000 things just off the top of my head.
Seriously.
Anyway, we'll save it for you for next time. Thank you for watching. This is D.K.K.S, Ian F. Scott,
Charlie Cannon.
no one cares, signing off. Cheers.